So in the last video I covered carbohydrates, but I need to go in more detail on blood sugar specifically. So blood sugar is when you're eating carbs, they get broken down into little sugars. So that's like the main unit of energy from carbohydrates. So some carbohydrates, it's like a large branching of the of strings of these little sugars. Some of them it's just all separate little packets of sugar that and oh, I hope that makes sense. But, okay, we're gonna manage blood sugar. So I'll break this down. So the blood sugar is this one little unit. Okay, I need to share my screen here so you can see this guy. Okay, so this graph will make sense. This area is like normal blood sugar levels. So when you just feel you're not necessarily hungry, you're not lightheaded, you're not super high energy spastic or anything, this is where you want to sit as far as your running around the day blood sugar levels, how much energy you have in your blood. Now, for us to understand why this graph is doing things like having a long, slow curve here and having a really intense spike here and having it drop, it has to do with absorption rate, how fast the thing that you're eating is going into your bloodstream and putting energy into your blood because of one hormone. Okay, so this hormone is called insulin, and its job is to open up cells in the body to receive energy. Its job is to clear energy from the blood and put it into the body. So we need this, obviously. Here's the issue. If we eat a meal that releases a lot of sugar into the blood, so we have this very high point, this is a lot of sugar in the blood, what happens is the insulin signal, that is basically a chemical messenger to actually kind of works like a key. It opens up cells to receive this energy. Okay, it sends that out into the bloodstream too to help open up all of these cells, and it does such a good job of mopping up the blood. It peaks up here, and so the insulin, the signal to store stuff, stays, and it starts storing, and it overdoes it because it doesn't remove itself from the blood fast enough. So if you get too much energy in the blood and it's like put it all away, it overdoes it and you end up down here. If you're down here with your energy, you're really actually going to be like dizzy, lightheaded, and you're going to be like, I need food in me now. We all know what it's like when you haven't had food for a while and you're like, I am not functioning well. I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I just so low energy, and you just kind of feel like crying, like it's just right? That's when you have super low energy in the blood and your brain is having issues functioning. It doesn't have the energy it needs. Okay, so that can be triggered by this. And if you go down here, what are you going to do? You're going to eat again. And if you eat again, you actually still have this insulin in the blood, and it goes your blood sugar goes back up, and guess what happens? Your body adds even more insulin into the blood and the second time you do that. So if you're doing this throughout the day, what ends up happening is you have tons of insulin in the blood, and your blood sugar is just going up and down and up and down and up and down. And what happens is the body stops feeling the insulin. So your body's always trying to stop feeling it, like regulating itself in the same way like you're getting sensory input from wearing the shirt you're wearing, but it's been constantly nagging at you, and so your brain tunes it out. I mean, now you probably notice it, but your brain is trying to tune out what's irrelevant. And a lot of your biology does that too. If it's constantly getting a signal, it starts tuning it out. So this leads to insulin resistance, which is pretty scary, because what can happen is you can have a lot of energy in the blood, but now there's no really strong signal to put that energy into the cells. So you can have energy so close to you that it's like in your veins and you're not able to access it. This leads to type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. Okay, why this isn't optimal? This isn't optimal for a lot of reasons. So and there's a lot of things we can do to alter how quickly something spikes, and I'm going to cover that. Okay, so if we different foods will dictate how fast this goes up, and different activities will dictate how fast this goes up. Okay. So I talked about before going to having a spoonful of honey, which is actually something that would peak this up pretty quick. Probably in between these two, it's very easy to absorb. The faster you absorb this stuff, the quicker it goes in the bloodstream, and the quicker you have the more you have a spike. Because let's say I have 50 units of sugar, I could stack them all up in a straight line, have them smack the system like that, or I could go, here's a little bit, but the body uses it, the body uses it, the body uses it as it's coming in, and so it's nice and steady. Okay, that's what's happening here with this one is you've eaten something, let's say oatmeal. Why oatmeal? Because oatmeal it actually takes a little bit for it to break down all those little cell layers and then get the sugar out of them. And so your body's constantly chopping through it and slowly piecing out the sugars, like mining for it, grabbing little bits and adding it to the system. You have a chunk of oatmeal sitting in your stomach. You're slowly sucking the nutrients out of that as you go through your day. If you have the exact same amount of sugar or carbohydrate or energy, whatever we're going to call it here, and you have it all at once, it looks different. So these all could be the same total amount of energy taken into the body, but this one, you'll notice the end point ends up being the same, and you're going to feel fed much longer because your body's not producing this insulin, which is the signal for it to store it into the cells of the body. It's not producing too much of it. So it's really the production of too much insulin that then you store a bunch of this as fat, actually, because you fill up the muscles and everything because they're not being used, and then you go, okay, we've dumped all of this into our fat storage, now we need to get more. Fat storage is happening more often around here too. That's important to note. So when you're going in the slow rate here, not as much fat storage is happening. It can still happen, but not nearly as much. Okay, so the activity you do can affect this in the food you can eat. Remember that the activities you do and the foods that you eat dictate how your insulin is responding and how much sugar is going into your blood. If I'm trying to spike it like this and I'm having honey and I go to the gym, I'm actually amplifying the rate in which my body is using it. So as it's coming in, it's getting used really quickly in the bloodstream, and so it doesn't actually have the chance to go all the way up to the same degree. We can say it goes here, and my body doesn't produce too much insulin, and I might use it all in the gym, and I might go down and I might go here, I might even drop down into this zone, and I can eat again here. But that's different than if I actually didn't go to the gym. It'd go here and crank down, and now I still have a lot of the insulin would still be here. The signal to save energy would still be really high, and the next meal I ate, even if the next meal I eat would still end up shoveling more of it into my fat reserves than I would like. Okay, so the exercise after the fact does a lot. This is one reason having a walk after a meal is a good idea, because it helps reduce how high the insulin spike goes. There's also something where it increases your breathing, so you're actually having this pump where when you're breathing to help move the food, because your diaphragm is pushing down and moving and helping digest, and also you're pumping blood through the whole system a little better, and it's a good way to actually assist with digestion as well. So to just go for a walk after eating is a really good piece of advice, and this is partly why. We also have the food combinations that you can eat that will affect how your insulin is responding to your food, how quickly the blood sugar is going up, and how much of that messenger to put the signal to open the cells to take in that energy. We're going to affect all of that with what we eat. So if you eat protein, you'd basically see something like this. If you just had like eggs, you'd kind of just see it flat. It's not really going to add much because this is more oriented around those carbs. You still get energy from eggs, you still get satiety from them, and you can run off of that fuel, but it's different. You're not going to be really able to output in these burst activities nearly as much. I wouldn't recommend, this is one reason I wouldn't recommend doing something like having eggs before the gym, because you're going to put a lot, it takes more energy to break them down because it's more protein. And so you're having a lot more blood then that has to go to your organs to break that all down, and then you don't have as much blood in the muscle to work. But if you then have the carbs, you can actually fill up the muscles with this energy and actually use them. So understanding how this works, a lot of the things make sense of why you would end up wanting to do certain things, or partner certain foods with certain activities. Okay, so notification. So if you eat protein with carbs, you actually slow down how fast your body can absorb it. So if you have plain rice versus plain rice and vegetables and meat, the plain rice will go, it'd probably be more similar to this, it'll go up a little high and then it'll go down. If you combine them all together, it slows the absorption of all of this because you have to digest other foods along with it. So when you're having something like a dinner, it's good at the end of the day to have something that's going to give a slow amount of food release or energy release into the blood that's steady. So when it's time to go to bed, you'll feel full. You'll still have energy. You're not going to be craving anything on the way to bed, because going to sleep hungry is not fun. This is really one of the biggest keys to understanding weight loss, in my opinion. People with diabetes or insulin resistance, or another way of saying this, people who will have a lot of sugar in the blood or energy in the blood and aren't actually taking it into the system, they have a hard time burning fat. Now, this will lead into the fat video, but when this sits low and you can get this to sit down here, your body will end up starting to ramp up its ability to use fat as fuel for other functions in the body, and it helps your body metabolize the actual fat on it if you can actually manage this blood sugar. Okay? This gets into ketosis, which I'll get into in the next video, but I'm going to end with this because this is the part of the video where you understand what this feels like for managing your energy, so you can decide how many macros, how to adjust your macros based off of your needs. So this is the subjective signal of the body. If your energy throughout the day is, you feel very jittery up here, very sporadic, jumping around, right? If you're feeling like that and then crashing and then having high energy and crashing, you need to lower the amount of carbs, or make sure you're eating them with something that slows how quickly your blood sugar is rising and falling, or just simply try to incorporate more protein-rich foods, protein and fat-rich foods into your diet, because that will slow down this process of your energy spike. If you need to go to work and you feel like you can't make it from breakfast to lunch without a snack, odds are you're eating foods that are putting you way up here and then tanking down, and you're having to constantly do that, and that actually that messes with your emotions as well. This could be why you're experiencing that. So incorporating more protein-rich foods will really help with this. More animal-based foods, typically. So, if you don't have to do really intense physical work in the morning, it's good to start the day with something like eggs, or a meat, where you'll feel satiated. You'll have a good amount of energy that'll just float throughout the day. And yes, you can have carbs with them as well. So you'll just have this slow release that'll last you a long time during the day. And then you can typically fill up a little more at the end of the day for your carbs. So you can refill that liver, because remember, your liver's holding it. You can refill your muscles. If you're going to the gym right away in the morning, you're going to want to have a burst of carbohydrates and go out there, hammer out the gym, come back, have carbohydrates again, but don't try to make them spike this time. Try to make them go nice and slow, so you can have blood that has energy in it while your body's trying to build muscle now over a long period of time, and it will help with that recovery process. So you can see that there's a lot of weird random things that people say. It's like you need to eat before the gym. All of it stems around this concept, right? If you're just having a desk job, you want to have just a steady, slow burn of energy. And honestly, for someone who's just having a desk job, I would recommend trying to run off of fat as a fuel, which I'll get into when I talk about fats. But if you're getting foggy headed at your desk, have some fruit, have a banana, have some, something, have a bowl of rice or something like that that will give you the carbs that you need to maintain doing that. A lot of the time you'll be able to just run off of what's stored in your liver, because again, it's a little pouch that's just holding on to some of that energy. A lot of people, I like what Andrew Huberman says about this. What he'll do is he'll refill his liver, so to speak, at the end of the day. He'll have a lot of those carbs. They make him nice and tired. They actually produce serotonin in the gut, which actually really makes you feel content with what's going on immediately. And you go to sleep, you wake up the next day, you have this big pouch of energy all full, your liver is full, and then you have just fats so that your body has a slow burning source of energy and backup reserves of the carbohydrate energy to just get you through a large portion of the day without needing snacks all the time. Now, I hope that makes sense. This is something that if it doesn't, I'd rewatch the video, look up stuff on insulin to figure out more, because this typically is the crux of people's weight loss issues, because this is affecting how well they can manage calories in and calories out and manage their energy throughout the day. If you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to reduce the amount of calories you're taking in, it's not a good idea to be spiking your calories, because you're going to have long periods of time where you're going to be dizzy, unhappy, and not feeling good. So you need to find ways that you can feed yourself effectively throughout the whole day, and understand that sometimes you will need to have a lot of energy, but make sure that you time what you eat to match the activity that you're trying to do. So again, if you're an athlete, you're going to be needing a lot of carbs to get through that day of a lot of physical work, so you're using those muscles so much. If not, you're sitting at a desk and you're going for walks and you're staying lightly active, you're going to need a different amount of carbohydrate. And if you're using your brain really intensely, you're going to have to figure out a way to do slow releases. I don't think these big bursts are really good for study sessions. I think having slow and steady for stuff like that is a better idea. But you'll notice after studying for a few hours, you'll be like, okay, I need to refill. You probably need some carbohydrates. You're probably depleting that liver. So that's where carbs tie into your energy system. Remember, subjectively, you need to be paying attention to how sporadic you feel with these high energy spikes and the low energy dips. Pay attention to that. If you have that occurring, increase the amount of protein in your diet and the amount of fat in your diet. Consider having periods of time where you don't have carbohydrates and you just try to run off of fat. If you're getting really, really lightheaded, bring in a little bit more of the carbohydrates in there with it. If you're beginning to feel slow and sluggish, you're having too much of the fats and protein. Plus, if you're getting constipated, then that's part of that too. So pay attention to this. The last little tidbit is fiber can also help the slowdown of this curve. This is one reason that fruit doesn't typically spike this thing as much. Fruit, I think, is a wonderful source of carbohydrate. Berries are wonderful. They're full of nutrients and everything. So don't shy away from those things. I understand that they have sugar. I understand that people will just say sugar is bad, and that's an oversimplification. When you eat fruit, it has little walls in it, cellular walls. It has to break through, and it creates a slower release of this energy. You're going to be fine running off of that stuff. I'm not saying you can just eat peaches all day, but typically they're less addictive, and your body will get a signal to stop eating, and it'll manage itself a lot more. So because that ties into the food as an industry thing. They don't have the addictive ingredients, the fat, salt, and sugar combos to really get you eating more. So that's, bear that in mind. And stick with all of this stuff. Stick with whole foods. Stick with clean foods. And the proportion, this is getting into the proportion side. The proportion of how much animal products versus plant life that you're going to be eating is going to be based off of how much physical activity where you need more of these carbohydrates and how much time you're needing to recover. And if you're just, sitting in a desk job, you're probably not going to need a huge amount of these carbohydrates in the same levels. So I know this was a lot. I'd recommend rewatching if you haven't, but understand insulin is the signal to open up cells to receive nutrients, so you do need to be sensitive to it, or else you won't get energy out of your own blood, which is a rough state to be. So if you can maintain staying in this zone with slow and steady energy coming in and out, occasional bursts that you're actually going to use when you actually go out and exercise, so you would initially have like a big burst, but it's stunted because of the activity you're doing, then you'll be able to balance this out, still be able to have sweet things every now and then, but you're going to be using them with a purpose. You're going to actually be reaping the benefits from these things, and you're not going to, gain a bunch of weight while still enjoying, fruits and stuff. And if you're really working out, you can have stuff like ice cream. At some point, the sugary things actually become useful once you're physically active enough. But again, if you're a desk jockey, odds are you're not going to want to deal with that as much. So if you are more interested in this concept, I did go more in detail on this in the book. I don't want to overdo this because it's quite the topic. But I have, I would recommend looking up the Glucose Goddess. She covers ways of preventing this from spiking. Stuff like you can have vinegar with a meal, like apple cider vinegar and stuff, and that will slow the release of the sugar that you're having there. Other meals that can, or food combinations that can slow things down. She goes into detail on that. The Glucose Goddess. I would recommend looking at her videos because I'm already, 23 minutes into this. So I hope you guys had a good one. Love you all, and I really hope that makes sense. Okay, I missed one important point. When I was doing editing, I saw this. There's something called the glycemic index. And what that is a measurement of how fast your blood sugar rises when you eat a food. Okay? So if you're interested in dialing this stuff in and getting an idea of what sources of carbohydrates are a slow release versus a fast release, so if you want to have them before going to the gym versus if you want to have them in the evening when you're recovering, or in the morning so you can have a long period of time when you have blood sugar staying steady, the glycemic index is how you figure this stuff out. Okay, so I don't think you should just base everything off of the glycemic index, but it's a good way to get a few ideas and narrow things down. So I wanted to get that out there to you guys really quick because it's an important part of this whole thing that I missed, and it's a good place for you to go if you're wanting to get further details. So sorry about that. Love you guys. Hope you have a good one.